Thank you so much. Thanks so much to Maya and to all the panelists for that session. As I said at the very beginning, when we were just getting ready for the start of the session, I'm really grateful to all of our organizational members who took advantage of the opportunity that this plenary is the first time ever we have invited our organizational members to be the if you like, the focus of our plenary and parallel sessions. And we've had some wonderful ones so far, including that, and left with an action as well. So we'll follow up. But I'm very grateful to Timea from EUDAT, and of course in CSC in Finland, Dake, Melissa Cragan, who's from SDSC, and Anders and Deborah and everybody, all of the panelists for that, and it's a good segue into this session, which will be 30 minutes, where we discuss a little bit the sustainability of the Research Data Alliance. And why is it a good segue? Well, the organizational members, for those of you who don't know, because I've discovered that many of you don't know, that actually we have a model, a subscription annual support model for organizations, and they are a very fundamental part of our financial sustainability and our revenue. And of course, so it's part of the discussion that we will have. So I'm here as the Secretary General, of course, and I've asked Dr. Natalie Harrower, who is the Director of the Digital Repository of Ireland, which provides digital archiving, online access and trusted long-term preservation for Ireland's social and cultural data. Natalie is originally a film and theatre scholar, actually, and her work spans the library, the culture and the higher education sectors, with, of course, expertise in the digital cultural heritage, data archiving, open science and research data management. So all the very important aspects also for RDA. And she is a member of the FAIR Data Expert Group, and importantly, served on OECD's high-level expert group on business models for sustainable data repositories. So Natalie is a partner in the Research Data Alliance of Europe. She chairs the LA's e-Humanities Working Group and serves on the Irish National Open Research Forum. And she's based at the headquarters in the Royal Irish Academy. So after that long introduction, Natalie, why? So perhaps you can tell the audience why you agreed actually to be involved in this financial sustainability work in the Research Data Alliance.
Sure, Hilary, thanks. I don't know where you got that the bio from. You found it yourself. So.
I made it up.
Yeah. But you know, it's interesting when you were naming some of the groups that are separate independent groups, I realized how many of those groups are run by RDA members, some of them that are on the call today. So, you know, it's a RDA reaches into all the important areas, not as much into the theater and film worlds, but we're working on it, you know. But thanks for that. So Hilary asked me to do this chat so we could talk about the business, because the business side is sometimes forgotten when we're in the thick of discussing all of the work that happens in RDA. And she said it would be a fireside chat. So I have my glass of wine, seeing it's only the middle of the day. Yeah, there you go. Yours actually looks like wine. But in terms of the question that you put, which is why did I agree to join the task force on the financial sustainability of RDA? Well, the absolute key reason is that I want there to be a sustainable RDA. I mean, that is the simple but obvious answer to it. Because I think, you know, I've been involved in RDA for a long time, and I think I've gravitated more towards the business side. You know, we helped to co-host the first Australian plenary in Dublin. That sounds complicated, but the Australians were running it, and we provided the more convenient location for the early days of RDA. So we got involved in that side of things, and to me, sort of helping to sustain the business side has always been key, because I'm not somebody who gets as involved in the very specific work of the working groups. It's not really my domain to do that kind of thing, but I want to see the overall structural working, because it's very valuable to us as a trustworthy data repository and in the environment in general. So importance of RDA, our interest in selfishly in seeing RDA continue because of its value to the broader community of data sharing. But also I think, I mean, well, you asked me, so that was part of it. But I think you asked me partly because not too long ago, the Digital Repository of Ireland, my organization, launched a membership model. And we went through a fairly extensive process of trying to figure out how that model should look, what the benefits were of joining, how we were going to communicate that we were going to suddenly start charging money for something that when we were in the earlier phase, as a very new organization, we were doing in a kind of partnership and collaborative basis, right? But we had to look towards something that was sustainable and accessible, that would fit the needs of our designated community and all of the rest. So I had gone through this process once, and it's a kind of a fascinating and not very easy process in some ways, but I wanted to help and do that for RDA. But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. So we should maybe talk a little bit about what the task force did, how it consulted across the RDA membership, and all the rest. So I think you're actually better to do that, Hilary, because you have good attention to that kind of detail.
And of course, in thanking Natalie, I should also thank the other members of the task force. In November 2020, the council, which is the body that gives the strategic vision for the Research Data Alliance, requested for a temporary task force to be instituted, and it was a 6-person member task force, so not a lot of people for a lot of work done. Together with Natalie, we had Ingrid Dillow, Robert Hanish, and Mark Leggett, who are council members, and Rebecca Koskela, who is the executive director of the RDA US. And then Natalie was there, as I said, with her expertise from DRI, but also with representation of RDA in Europe and myself. So there were 6 of us, different concepts, I suppose, and different models were assessed. I actually put a short link into the chat there, so you can see there's a 5-page summary of the outputs. The recommendations are actually if I'm not wrong, something like a 60-page document. But in a nutshell, the task force split up into mini groups to look at the 5 main models. So organizational membership as a continued, if you like, source of revenue, individual membership, which is a new concept for the Research Data Alliance. Currently, individual membership is free. Regional engagement, which actually already exists as a financial framework, if you like. And then plenaries. So plenaries as a revenue model. This is the first plenary, actually, where the RDA Secretariat and the RDA Foundation, which is the legal entity that employs Bridget, but also does the daily operations for the whole global organization, all 12,000 members, all 65 organizational affiliates, and our regional members now. And it's the first time that we've actually collected the revenue and if you like, and managed it directly ourselves. We usually have local hosts to do that. So that's another idea for a source of revenue. And then other, if you like, ad hoc and sponsor revenue. So what we really wanted to do, I suppose, with all of this is to move away from the project funded model, which is how RDA was set up originally in 2012 and has sort of been funded ever since. But anyone who's involved, I think, in infrastructures and particularly in nonprofits understands that that model won't continue, if you like, over over time. You need to change it and look at new things. And I suppose RDA has grown exponentially since 2013, and yet the revenue models have not really changed so much. So the time had come, I suppose, for that. But Natalie, maybe I can ask you a little bit about, because Natalie was together with Ingrid, were focused very heavily on the organizational membership model. So you could maybe tell the people what are the changes that are there, and why these were made for the Research Data Alliance. I mean, why not keep it like it was?
Sure. Well, okay. So I guess, fundamentally, and this can't really be underlined enough, we want to keep RDA going, right? But we want to also keep the fees reasonable. So, you know, the whole balance of this entire task force was, how do we actually try to create this sustainable mixed income stream business model without alienating existing members or causing issues or that sort of thing. So that you know, that was at the kind of foundation of everything that we were doing. And the organizational membership model was already in place. So there was a revenue stream coming from there. So this was something quite obvious in a sense to take a look at in the beginning. And the fees for organizational members had not changed since they were instituted in 2014, like not even indexed to inflation and all of the rest. So we really did have to take a look at that. We did a fair bit of work of consulting with the organizational assembly. So a lot of you are on the call today, and thanks for those of you that turned on your cameras, by the way, so we can, I see Martha nodding in the middle of my screen here. Hi, Rob. But it's nice. I'm really missing seeing everyone in person. Anyway, so we looked at the organizational fees, and one of the things that members were saying is that one of the best things we could do to increase the value of RDA to them was to get more organizational members in. So if that's the case, if there's a desire for more organizational members, then we have to do some work to go out and get them. And we should consider what kind of revenue we can get from that stream, because that should be a fairly consistent income stream, something that we can rely on, right? So one of the first things we had to do is we decided to do a slight rise in the actual fees as they existed, but then we made a number of other changes to how that the structure of those fees work. So one of the key things is that we really tried to introduce better equity and nuance across the board of organizations. So in the existing model, there were 3 tiers. If you had a certain number of staff, you were on tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3, and that was it. Okay, 3 options. So we introduced another tier to account for, you know, there was a big gap in organizational size, so we put another one in there, and that was in direct consultation with OA, and precisely to ensure that existing organizational members wouldn't see a huge jump in their fees. So it fit the circumstance. So four different fee brackets, but then we also changed it to, this seems like a minor change, but the basis was then full-time equivalents as opposed to numbers of humans who work for you, because that can make a big difference for some organizations that have a lot of part-time. And then we made a distinction between fees for for-profit organizations who serve to potentially gain commercially from the work they do at RDA, right? Or the being involved in RDA, to make a distinction between the for-profit and the not-for-profit organizations. And then finally, and I think this one's really important, and in the surveys we did, this came back as a real desire from RDA's membership, is that there was a proper distinction between fees for high income countries, which constitute the vast majority of members in RDA, and low to middle income countries. So we did a bit of analysis on, you know, GDP and adjusting it for purchasing power parity, and then we spoke to members in RDA that are from low to middle income countries, and determined a structure that we thought and that they agreed was fitting. So the entire model, with all the for-profit and not and the different levels, there's actually different versions for depending on the kind of income level of your country. So I guess so that was a lot of info, but to sort of summarize, one of the things we wanted as well is to really try to diversify the membership and to make RDA as accessible as possible to a wider range of participants. So we're hoping that the model will do that, because, you know, data sharing is global. So we can't just
and it ties well in with our strategic plan, as well, where I mean, some of the objectives are around the lower and middle income, increasing to make it truly global. We need to increase a lot of our membership in sort of the global south, or however we like to, southern hemisphere. I also think actually as well there, to me at least, regions and organizations are really key to RDA for very different reasons, you know, so and they have very important roles there. But I just would like to say, if you hear snoring or noising, I have a dog here beside me who has decided she's going to snore and dream her way through this. So she's clearly excited about the financial sustainability of the Research Data Alliance. But anyway, she's here now. Sorry, back to more serious things. So, but Natalie, I mean, do you think, tell us a little about a couple of the difficult aspects you might think, or more controversial aspects of this new overall 5-prong fork or model that we have defined?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's any surprise that the area, I guess, we were most attentive to, and there seemed to be concern around, coming from within this task force as well, is introducing any kind of individual membership fee. I don't think there's much controversy around what we did with the organizational side. I hope not. In the end, somebody may put up their hand and say, yes, there is. But with the individual side, there was a lot of care taken around how we would approach this because of the very nature of RDA, which is that it's volunteer based, right? So people are already giving their time freely. And what does it mean to then introduce a fee? But again, we were trying to balance off having a robust model, and that robust model really relies on different income streams, right? Because what we had in the past was project funding, and that's limited. And once that goes, it goes. So how do we keep all of the fees reasonable and our expectations around them? And one of the ways into that was to look towards an individual membership fee. But I really think that, I hope, I mean, I feel we struck a balance with that, because we introduced, again, different kinds of tiers. And the fact is, you can still stay involved in RDA, be involved in the working groups, get all of the outputs freely. You can do all of that without paying anything. And we're calling that a kind of, I think we call that the regular member. And then we introduced a supporting member and a sustaining member. And supporting is a small fee that, you know, it helps to support RDA. It does what it says on the tin. And then if you want to sort of be involved in RDA's governance, and kind of play, I guess, a more official role, or chair a working group, then you have to move over to that fee. And of course, we've grandfathered things, so there's time for people to change that. And then the last one, the sustaining one, is if you're able to contribute a higher level fee, then you do that. And what we paired that with is, then you can also give a membership to an individual from a low to middle income country. So we're trying to find ways to work that out in different aspects. So, you know, I guess there was some concern around instituting that. And I don't know, maybe you could speak to that more, Hilary. Like, what are your thoughts about future of RDA given this context? Yeah.
Before I actually go to that, one thing I just to tell on the timing, so people might wonder, the organizational membership model changes from 2022, from January 2022, and we're already socializing that with the organizational assembly. So the members, the existing ones, they were actually involved in some of the consultation. The individual membership model sustaining will come in at some point in 2022, with the concept around individual membership, and the supporting one in 2023. Also, as you said, to give time to work that model out. We also need the membership management platform to help us to do that. And I mean, many things. So there is a rollout, and there are timings involved, but it's obviously not tomorrow, and things won't change tomorrow. And there are a few nuances still to understand between the organizational membership and individual membership and paying members, which has been brought to our attention, and we still want to find some answers to that and some more concrete numbers. So we said we'd work through that over the next couple of months with the organizational assembly. But I mean, the future of RDA, well, given this context, I suppose, I mean, my understanding, I've been lucky enough to be involved in RDA since the very, very beginning, and albeit in different, with a different role and a different guise and that. But since actually CSC were the leader of the European project in September 2012. So I know how it started, the Research Data Alliance, like many people on the call do, and how it was, if you like, project funding. Yes, governments across the globe or funders across the globe getting together and understanding or agreeing on what should be done, but not doing a sort of an intergovernmental organization or anything. So that clearly has, for the first few years was wonderful. There was a good injection. I think the funders have always seen the value of RDA. They continue to see the value of RDA, but of course, you know, as I said, we need to find other ways of funding it. I think the answer is that I see a bright future for the Research Data Alliance. I always remember years ago, how long will it go on? Well, it will go as long as it's required and needed, and the growth in the community, you can see that. And not individual members. People often say, ah, yeah, but is that really a good number? Well, I have my answer for that, but of course, because, you know, there are people driving it, there are people contributing, there are people observing, but for us, organizational members are fundamental. And, you know, whatever role or whatever, how little or how more you contribute, you know, there's no rule to say that you have to be driving a group to be a member of RDA. So, but you can see the interest, the growth in organizational members, and the consolidation as well of the regions. And we could certainly do more. And of course, we can't do any more if we don't have some support and funding for that. But I think RDA, recently I've been talking, it's a public good. I think it is a public good. There are outputs, there is community based, by the community, for the community, solutions and everything out there that are clearly required and needed, and it's an excellent and unique forum for things to be done. So to me, the future is bright. Yes. We explored models that we felt were feasible, I suppose, but at the same time can ensure the future of RDA and the sustainability and more, if you like, structure. You know, I think I see a bright future.
What are you going to do with the money? So, okay, we did some projections, right? And I see my fellow task force members here. I see some of your cameras on. Hi, Bob. Hi, Ingrid. And I think Rebecca's there. You can only see one screen of people, right? But what if the projections that we put forth for the next couple of years, if we can meet those, then what will that enable RDA to do?
Well, okay, so those very quickly, apart from going off and buying an island somewhere, I don't think so. So just very briefly, how does it work? Because some people don't actually know how RDA is funded. So as I said, we have, there's a legal entity, it's actually in the UK, the RDA Foundation, which represents legally and is the legal headquarters, but also represents the community. And for example, in producing standards or going through certain or applying for funding or anything, you need a legal entity. So that we have a legal entity. The legal entity employs myself and Bridget full-time, and we are the only two full-time staff members for the Research Data Alliance. We are very lucky through our regional partnerships to have in-kind support, particularly from the US and from Australia, and they are pieces of people that make up whole. You know, we have, I suppose, another one or two full-time employees between the time. We're in a particularly low staff resource moment because funding has ended. The new funding that is available for RDA looks to a different RDA in a different guise. Yeah, so you know, it's not, as we said, reliable. If we are able to just get what we have forecast and what we need for next year, which is about, by the way, 400,000 British pounds, because that's how our accounts are kept. We can maintain the staff. We could hire 2 new positions. And of course, there are office costs go with that. Yeah, 2 new full-time positions. And we could also create some bank reserves. So because we've had some financial difficulty in the last couple of years, that some of our forecasts weren't quite met, we need to create some reserves, which most people who are under, you know, have an organization. So it doesn't seem a lot, but it would do that, which would make a huge difference to the community, of course, because for having 4 dedicated full-time people to the Research Data Alliance, there's a lot of work to do. So, yeah.
So, and what, you know, so it's, we want to maintain business as usual in a sense and provide a bit of space in there to do the work, because I mean, it just keeps growing. But what, one of the things that I think a lot of us know is that when you can actually secure and get people into place in a secure kind of position, then they can also help to build things in other sorts of ways. It enables that. It's hard to reach out for new sources of money if you have nobody in place to do that, right? So what else could happen? I mean, RDA's, we have such a diverse community with a lot of ideas. What else could you see coming out of this, I guess?
So if we had more money to spare, or there were, you know, not much, no, but I recently attended the chairs meeting, and that's a wonderful group. Of course, they are, you know, very central to the Research Data Alliance. They understand what it means to drive a group and the work that's required and involved. And they have some wonderful ideas, you know, for cross-linking between groups, and maybe, you know, mapping or landscaping. I know this word is a bit controversial in the RDA field because it's very difficult, but we would be able to, you know, perhaps do some more work around that. Support. What about the COVID activity 2 years ago? You know, those, most of you should know that, but we made a direct bottom or top down, which is very unusual for RDA, call to action to help for the COVID work. And this amazing piece of work, Natalie, you were one of the chairs, came out, yes, but we had no funding, nothing. We have nothing to give to support that. If I were able to have a pot of money where I could say, you know what, I'll just hire or find somebody who I can, you know, ask to dedicate X number of days or months to do the editorial work around that, to support the volunteer work. What about awards or scholarships or little things like that? Offsetting the costs of the lower and middle income people to come to plenaries. I can't do that. Yeah, I don't have anything. So there are, I mean, I think it's endless what we could do, you know, what we could do. If we can meet, I don't want to hire 10 million staff. I don't think that, I actually like the hybrid model. So I don't think that that's a good idea. And it wouldn't be in my personal vision, and I don't think councils either, to hire so many. We need a few more staff, and then some more flexibility around funds would make such a difference, because we could really, you know, use it to show impact. And there are many things, science communicators, you know, the world is the limit. So
yeah, and you know, and I see there's a chat going on between Rob and Bob right now, you know, about the importance of getting involved. And one of the things that I was thinking about in terms of the individual membership side is that, you know, there are lots of organizations where you pay professional membership fees. And I know this varies whether you're in North America or Europe. I've seen both sides of it. But you know, we are in a sense an organization where we have particular work that we are doing that is similar. Francoise said this in a call the other day, you know, that our domain is data sharing and making that happen. So to me, my membership in RDA, to me, is a badge of that professional association. It means that this is part of the world that I belong to. Anyway, people have their hands up. So do you want to moderate this? Ingrid has something to say.
Yeah. Well, for the 1 minute that's left, I will let Ingrid.
Oh, 1 minute. Oh, I thought we had time to chat. Sorry.
Oh dear, I don't want to take up your valuable last minute, but it's just a cry from my personal heart that I think that RDA is an excellent example of a piece of, you could say, critical infrastructure that we acknowledge around the world. And I think there are more examples of critical pieces of infrastructure that are run and set up by volunteers and that are run on a shoestring. So not only I think I very much agree with what Bob and Rob were saying in the chat, but I also think that we can all, as members of RDA, play a role in making this clear in our communities and towards our national funders that, you know, initiatives like RDA, but also when you look at certain PIT providers, when you look at organizations like Seal, they all perform critical roles in the infrastructure that we need around the globe for research data, and they are really underfunded, and we're not talking about big numbers here. So I think it would also be good if we all in our own context, nationally, regionally, make this point and try to make sure that we can continue with the work that we're all doing within RDA and others.
Thank you, Ingrid. Yes, I think, yes, Gus, we did look at, but the bells have rung, and it was anyway just a flavour. We did put in the chat, you can read the 5-page summary of the sustainability recommendations. There's a very long document on individual membership, the survey we did on that, but it's some interesting insights into it if any of you were like it. I'd like to thank once again, I really and truly, Ingrid Dillow, Bob Hanish, Natalie Harrower, Rebecca Koskela and Mark Leggett for the really wonderful work. We were meeting once a week and they were working offline, all of them to do this very hard work, and to council and all the observers on council who supported us and help us to make these recommendations for the benefit of the community. And as I like to say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So please, I'm here. Contact me if you're interested in understanding more about how you can help, how your organization could become a member and benefit from the organizational membership, or regionally, nationally, if I can help. And thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you're enjoying the plenary. We are very, very much. Thanks again, Natalie, for giving your time to do this. And goodbye.
Bye, thanks.
Bye. Oh.